So remember, as we're talking about the history of Texas, first, Texas was occupied by Native Americans. Then came along the Spanish, and the Spanish held parts of it for hundreds of years. Finally, the country, they weren't a country yet, but Mexico decides to leave Spain to get their independence from Spain. They get upset with the way that the Spanish government is handling money, especially money in the church. So let's look at this and see if we can make some sense of all of it. So it starts with Father Miguel Hidalgo, who issues the Grito de Dolores. Father Miguel issued a yell to banish the Spanish. Okay, and he calls for Mexico's independence from Spain, and they execute him by firing squad. Well, later, 1 year later, in 1811, a man named Gutierrez de Lara, who was he's from Mexico, he's born in Mexico, and he says, you know what, I want to help get Spain out of here. And he knew that Father Miguel had died, so he thinks we need help. We can't just talk about it. We need help. So he goes to Washington D.C. to ask the U.S. for help in overthrowing the Spanish in Texas, and he's going to look specifically at Texas and helping Texas. Well, the thing is that doing that, by the way, is treason. So that's what we call a capital crime. If Spain had known about it, he would have been executed also. Well, the U.S. tells him, hey, go to New Orleans, and we're going to give you some supplies and money, and you're going to get to round up men. So he goes to New Orleans, and he does that. He rounds up men, and he starts by finding a guy named McGee, Augustus McGee. And Augustus and him round up all these guys and hundreds of men, and it's called the Gutierrez McGee expedition, named after two men, Gutierrez y Lara and Augusta McGee, the Gutierrez McGee expedition. And they head over the Sabine River, and they take Nacogdoches and then Goliad, which is the same place where La Bahia is, the La Bahia Presidio. Sometimes we call it Goliad, sometimes we call it La Bahia, but that's where that is. And they take that, and then they go to San Antonio. And in San Antonio, they do run into some trouble because they get surrounded by the Spanish army there, but they beat them back and they win. Okay, and after that, they actually form a government for Texas, and de Lara is the governor of Texas, and they have a Declaration of Independence, but it doesn't last very long, and de Lara gets forced out of that. He resigns, and he takes off to Louisiana. Well, in the meantime, McGee and those guys, they go on, and actually, by then, McGee is dead because McGee had died at Goliad. I forgot about that. So he didn't make it this far. He never makes it to the Battle of Manita. Neither of those two original leaders are at this battle. But it's a devastating loss for the Texans. They aren't very well coordinated, and whoever's in charge, it doesn't do a great job. You see that several times here. You'll see that in Texas history, where the guys in charge aren't communicating well. And the Spanish really are a much more organized army. They've done this for a long time, whereas this ragtag group of Native Americans and Mexicans and ruffians from the United States, they're not easy to get pointed in the right direction, right? And the Spanish army kills over 1,000 men at the Battle of Medina. They execute all prisoners, and then they go into San Antonio. Remember, the Battle of Medina is really right just a few miles outside of San Antonio. And the reason that battle was fought there is the Republican Army of the North didn't want to to hurt the civilian population. So they purposely fought the battle at the Medina River. But after they're all dead, including the prisoners, by the way, about 100 of the men get away, and it's only known about who 20 of them actually were. The rest of them, nobody knows who they were. Those other 80, but they killed civilians. The Spanish army, and Arredondo was the name of their leader. Arredondo went into San Antonio and killed civilians who had helped the Republican Army of the North. And there was a guy with him. One of his sub-commanders was a guy named Santa Anna. And he's going to come back big in Texas history. And he's way bigger even in the history of Mexico, ultimately. And I don't know if you just lost your screen, but I did. I think we got it back now. Okay. Well, this coup d'etat was ended now. A coup d'etat is when a small group tries to overthrow a government, but that ended the coup d'etat, and Texas is mostly quiet now for 7 years. So that means this was a big deal, the Battle of Medina. It shut down what was going on. And Mexico eventually defeats Spain under the leadership of Agustin de Iturbide. And Iturbide becomes the emperor in a monarchy, but it's the kind of monarchy is democratic monarchy. But he doesn't last long, and they get rid of him. And you'll see that lots of times in power changes, where the guy that is the big general, and then he becomes the president or the leader or the governor. He doesn't last very long because he's actually better at kind of starting things than running things, and it's hard to have both of those skills. So, but kind of once they get up and going, they eventually come up with the Constitution. And there's these two groups, the Federalists versus the Centralists. The Federalists say, look, we want the states to have a lot of power. We don't want all the power centralized in one place in this new country we have of Mexico. And Mexico is huge at the time, remember. It goes like all the way down to Panama and all the way up to the top of California. This is a huge area. And so some are saying, you know what, the states need more power. And others say, no, let's centralize it. Mexico City needs to be in charge. And, well, the Federalists went out. And so the states get a lot of power, which really plays into helping Texas get its independence. And the Constitution of 1824 creates the state of Coahuila y Tejas. I feel like I may have misspelled that. I will have to look that up. Okay. Now, and then Texas, once it gets going, it goes, you know, we need more people here because we don't want to be Coahuila y Tejas. We would just want to be Texas. And we don't want to be part of, we want to split this up. So those guys on the other side of the Rio Grande can do their thing. And on this side of the Rio Grande, we can do our thing. And they created state laws now to encourage the population to grow as fast as they could, because they needed more people to have more power and more say in the Mexican government. And so they start getting settlers to come in, and they start offering thousands of acres to settlers cheaply. And impresarios manage those land grants. And one of the things you're not going to see written right here is that slavery becomes an issue. And what happens is the Mexican government in 1829 says no to slavery. They make their own Emancipation Proclamation, similar to what President Lincoln in the U.S. will do in the 1860s. This is, 30 years before that, 30-something years before that, and the Mexican president does that, stopping slavery. It just issues this as a declaration. And, well, that's never enforced in Texas. Texas keeps doing what it wants with slavery. And this becomes an issue between Mexico and Texas. And we are now on the cusp. In just a few years, we will have the Texas Revolution.